The Banū Aws, or simply Aws, was one of the main Arab tribes of Medina. The other was Khazraj, and the two constituted the Ansar after the Hijra.Aws and Khazraj were known as Banū Qayla in pre-Islamic era. Etymology. The word Al-Aws means the gift, probably a contraction for Aws Manat. The name was changed in Islamic times to Aws Allah. History. Early history about 300 AD, during the emigration of Qarlan from Yemen prior to the Great Flood of Ma'rib-Dam, Talaba bin Amr, grandfather of Aws, separated from his tribe and settled in Yathrib, which was then controlled by Jewish clans, and Banū Qayla were subordinate to the Jews for some time, until Malik bin Ajlan of Khazraj asserts independence of the Jews. So Aws and Khazraj obtained a share of palm trees and strongholds. Thus, about 5th century, Banū Qayla took control of Yathrib and Jews retired into the background for about a century. During these periods before Hijra, Abu Qais al-Aslar of the clan of Wa'il, the leader of Aws, gave away the leadership to Udriya bin Simak of Abd al-Ashhal. After a serious defeat, Abd al-Ashhal and Afar were withdrawn from Yathrib. The opposing leader, Amr bin Nu'man of the Khazraj clan of Bayada, drove the Jews tribes of Banū Qayla and Banū-Nadir into alliance of the two. Nomads of Muzayna joined them too. Most of the Khazraj as well as the Jews tribe Banū Qayla and the nomadic Juhayna and Ashu supported Amr bin Nu'man. The Awside clan of Aratha remained neutral. Then, about 617 AD, the Battle of Bu'ath began. Aws forced back at first, but finally defeated their opponents. The leaders of both sides were killed. Shia sources say they were Jews, while a Jewish source says they and the Banū Khazraj were Arab tribes from Yemen who came to Medina in the 4th century CE. The Jewish source continues to say that the two tribes took the power of Medina from the Jews in the 5th century by calling in outside assistance and treacherously massacring at a banquet. However, all sources agree that the Banu Aws and Banū Khazraj became hostile to each other. A Shia source states that they had been fighting for 120 years and were sworn enemies. The Jewish source states that they went to war against each other in the Battle of Bu'ath a few years before the Islamic prophet Muhammad migrated to Medina. There were many Jewish tribes then present in Medina: Banū-Nadir, Banū Qayla, Banū Qayla, and many more. During the battle, the Banū-Nadir and the Banū Qayla fought with the Banu Aws, while the Banū Qayla were allied with the Banū Khazraj. The latter were defeated after a long and desperate battle. Muhammad came to Medina as a mediator, invited to resolve the feud between the factions of Banū Aws and Banū Khazraj. He ultimately did so by absorbing both factions into his Muslim community, forbidding bloodshed among Muslims. The Banu Aws were included in point 3031 of the Constitution of Medina as allies to the Muslims, being as one nation, community with the believers. After this, Banu Aws and others became known as the Ansar. The Banū Qayla were a Jewish tribe who lived in Medina. The bulk of the tribe's men, apart from a few who converted to Islam, were killed in 627 CE, following a siege mounted by Muslim inhabitants of Medina and immigrants from Mecca after Banū Qayla had agreed to aid the Meccan enemies in their attack on Medina, which the Muslims had just repulsed in the Battle of the Trench. Since Banū Qayla was an ally of the Banu Aws during the Battle of Bu'ath, they choose Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, the chief of the Banu Aws, as the judge. He, in spite of the pleading of his own tribe, condemned the men to death and the women and children to slavery. Sa'd ibn Mu'adh himself died shortly after the event, due to injuries received during the Battle of the Trench. Military campaigns. On 624 Muhammad ordered the assassination of Ka'b ibn al-Ashraf. According to Ibn Ishaq, Muhammad ordered his followers to kill Ka'b because he had gone to Mecca after Badr and inveighed against Muhammad. He also composed verses in which he bewailed the victims of Quraysh who had been killed at Badr. Shortly afterwards he returned to Medina and composed amatory verses of an insulting nature about the Muslim women. This killing was carried out by the Banu Aws when men of the Banu Aws tribe murdered Ka'b ibn al-Ashraf. Some Khazraj tribesmen, including Abdullah ibn Ane, went to Muhammad and received a permission to put to death the person responsible for the killing of Salam ibn Abu al-Haqq, who was killed during the expedition of Abdullah ibn Atiq. Salam ibn Abu al-Haqq was a Jew who helped the troops of the Confederates and provided them with a lot of wealth and supplies, on the one hand, and used to mock Muhammad with his poetry, on the other. When the Muslims had settled their affair with Banū Qayla, al-Khazraj tribe, a rival of Aws, asked for Muhammad's permission to kill him in order to merit a virtue equal to that of Aws, who had killed Ka'b ibn al-Ashraf. People. Sa'd ibn Muadh head. Bashir ibn Sa'd leader. Usaid bin Hudayr bin Samik. Sa'd bin Kathama bin al-Harith. Rifa bin Abdul Mundir bin Zubair.